The polished coffin gleamed under the church's dim lights, but her gaze sharp and teasing hit me like a spark igniting something dangerous in my chest. Was this fate, or a cruel trick waiting to unravel? I stood in the corner of the old church, its stained glass windows casting fractured colors across the pews. My best friend Dylan was a wreck, his eyes red from crying over his Uncle Henry's death. He had begged me to come for support, and I couldn't say no. The air smelled of lilies and damp wood, and mourners whispered memories in hushed tones. I stayed close to Dylan during the service, my hand on his shoulder as he shook, but when the reception started he was pulled into a crowd of family members sharing stories of fishing trips and bad dad jokes. I stepped back, giving him space, feeling like an outsider in the sea of grief. That was when I noticed her. She was across the room holding a glass of red wine, her dark hair swept up in a loose bun. Her black dress hugged her frame, simple yet striking, like she belonged in a painting. I caught her eye for a split second, and my pulse jumped. I turned away, pretending to study a tray of sandwiches, but I could feel her watching me. A moment later she was beside me, her voice low and playful. "You look way too calm for a funeral. Planning to charm the whole room, or just here for the free food?" I nearly choked on my drink, her boldness catching me off guard. I laughed, a nervous snort escaping, and she grinned like she had won a bet. Her name was Chloe, a graphic designer with a sharp wit and a laugh that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. She said she was close to Henry's granddaughter, practically family, growing up next door, and calling him uncle out of habit. I told her about Dylan, how we met in college over a shared obsession with bad sci-fi movies. The conversation flowed too easily, like we had known each other for years. We swapped stories about our worst camping trips, hers involving a raccoon stealing her backpack, mine ending with a sprained ankle and a vow to never hike again. She hated overpriced coffee shops. I admitted to binge listening to lo-fi playlists while coding. It was strange how natural it felt, standing in a room full of sorrow but buzzing with this unexpected connection. My heart was racing, and not just from the wine. Chloe leaned closer, her fingers brushing my arm as she laughed at my story about accidentally setting off a smoke alarm while cooking. I wanted to freeze this moment, her eyes locked on mine, the rest of the world fading away. But then Dylan appeared, his face pale and drawn. He grabbed my elbow, pulling me aside. "I need you, man. Can you stick with me for a bit?" His voice cracked, and guilt hit me hard. I had been so caught up with Chloe I forgot why I was here. I nodded, promising to stay close, but when I glanced back she was still watching me, her expression unreadable. For a second I thought I saw a flicker of something, hesitation maybe, or calculation, but she smiled and it was gone. We kept talking later, slipping away to a quieter corner of the reception hall. She teased me about my choice of tie. I countered with a jab at her obsession with vintage band tees. By the time people started leaving I realized I didn't want this to end. My hands were sweaty as I typed her number into my phone, her fingers grazing mine when she handed it back. As I drove home that night, the rain streaking across my windshield, I couldn't shake her from my mind. Meeting someone like Chloe at a funeral felt like the start of something big, maybe a love story, maybe a disaster. Either way, I was already hooked. Before we dive deeper into this wild ride of a story, let me pause for a second. Where are you all listening from today? Drop a comment and let us know. And if this tale is grabbing you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up with what happens next. I replayed our conversation in my head, her laugh, her quick comebacks, the way she made a gloomy day feel alive. I was a freelance programmer used to long nights staring at code, but now all I could see was her. Sitting in my car outside my apartment, I stared at her number on my phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. Something told me this was more than a chance meeting, but a small voice in the back of my mind whispered to be careful. I ignored it. 3 days later I asked her out, and when she said yes, my heart did a backflip. Little did I know that spark in the church was about to set my world on fire. My phone buzzed with Chloe's text 3 days after the funeral, a simple smiley face, and a suggestion to grab coffee. My heart leapt as I typed back, agreeing to meet at a riverside cafe that weekend. I spent the next 2 days overthinking my outfit and replaying her laugh in my mind, convinced she was too good to be real. The cafe smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastries, its patio overlooking a lazy stretch of water glinting under the afternoon sun. Chloe arrived in a denim jacket, her hair loose and catching the breeze. She slid into the seat across from me, her eyes sparkling with that same playful energy from the church. We ordered lattes and dove into conversation like no time had passed. She talked about her latest graphic design project, a poster for a local band, and I admitted to spending too many hours debugging code for a finicky client. Her questions came fast: how I got into programming, what inspired me, what scared me most about the future. I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years, my usual walls crumbling under her gaze. When she reached across the table to steal a sip of my coffee, her fingers lingered on mine and my breath caught. We ended the date wandering downtown, the city lights flickering on as dusk settled. She stopped under a street lamp, her face soft and unreadable, before leaning in to kiss me. Her lips were warm and sure, and when we pulled apart I was dizzy, my world tilting in the best way. That kiss was the start of everything. Over the next 3 months we became inseparable. We spent weekends exploring art galleries, laughing at abstract sculptures we didn't understand. One night we tried making pizza from scratch, ending up with burnt crust and flour on our faces, but grinning like kids. Chloe had a way of turning mundane moments into adventures, like when we got lost on a backroad drive and ended up stargazing in a random field, her head on my shoulder, as we named constellations we made up. I was falling hard, my heart racing every time she texted or slipped her hand into mine. She met my friends, who adored her quick wit and easy charm. I met her parents over dinner at their cozy suburban house, her mom teasing me about my terrible taste in football teams. Everything felt right, like we were building something solid, something lasting. At the 6-month mark, my apartment lease was ending and Chloe suggested we move in together. The idea thrilled me. We found a small place just outside the city, a second-floor unit with creaky floors and a balcony where she could grow herbs and I could set up a desk for coding. Moving day was chaos, boxes everywhere, and Chloe directing me like a drill sergeant, but that night we collapsed on the couch, sharing a beer and watching the sunset through our new windows. Coming home to her became my favorite part of the day, whether she was sketching at the kitchen table or humming off-key while watering her plants. I loved our life, the rhythm we were carving out together. But there were moments that nagged at me, small cracks I tried to ignore. Chloe rarely mentioned her friends, and when I brought it up she deflected with vague excuses. They were swamped with work, she said, or dealing with personal stuff. Once I suggested joining her for a girls' night she had mentioned, but she laughed it off, saying it was cancelled last minute. I brushed it aside, telling myself she just wanted us to focus on each other. Her parents knew me, her coworkers sent me memes through her phone, so why did her inner circle feel like a locked door? I caught myself wondering if I was enough for her, if she was holding back some part of herself I couldn't reach. One evening we were sprawled on the couch watching a cheesy horror flick, her legs draped over mine. Her phone lit up with a notification, and she grabbed it a bit too quickly, her smile fading as she read the screen. I leaned over, teasing about her being a secret spy, but she turned the phone away, her voice sharp. Just work stuff, okay? My stomach twisted, her reaction so unlike the open, warm Chloe I knew. She softened a second later, apologizing and kissing my cheek, but the air felt heavier. I stared at the TV, the movie's jump scare barely registering as my mind spun. Was she hiding something, or was I reading too much into a single moment? I wanted to believe it was nothing, but that fleeting glimpse of unease stuck with me like a shadow I couldn't shake. That night, as she slept beside me, her breathing steady, I lay awake, my thoughts a tangle of love and doubt. I was in deep, maybe too deep, and the life we were building felt both perfect and fragile. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand answers about her secrecy. But another part was terrified of what I might find, terrified of losing the one person who made me feel whole. I closed my eyes, pushing the worry down, and telling myself love would smooth out the edges. I had no idea how wrong I was. I pushed open the door to our apartment, my arms heavy with a paper bag from Chloe's favorite bakery. The smell of cinnamon rolls wafted up, a surprise I hoped would brighten her day after a week of late nights at her design studio. The living room was dark, the only sound a soft giggle drifting from our bedroom. I smiled, assuming she was watching one of her goofy sitcoms, maybe sprawled across the bed with her laptop. I set the bag on the counter, my sneakers quiet on the hardwood as I crept closer, planning to startle her with a playful hug. But as I reached the half-open door, her voice stopped me cold, not the carefree tone I loved, but something sharper laced with a nervous edge. She was recording a voice message, her phone glowing in her hand. I leaned against the wall, just out of sight, my curiosity outweighing the guilt of eavesdropping. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I swear, Maya, I never meant to keep this thing with him going this long. You and Quinn were so brutal making me do this. He's not even my type. She laughed, a brittle sound that didn't match the woman I knew. But he's sweet, you know. I almost feel bad for stringing him along. My chest tightened, my breath shallow as I gripped the doorframe. The bakery bag slipped from my fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud, the sound snapping her head around. Her eyes widened, her face draining of color, as she fumbled the phone, dropping it onto the bed. She sprang up, her hands trembling. Her voice cracked as she spoke. You're home early. I froze, my mind racing to process what I had heard. My voice came out low and hard. Early enough to hear you call me a joke. Her knees buckled and she sank onto the bed, her hands covering her face. Tears seeped through her fingers, but I felt no urge to comfort her, only a hollow ache where trust used to be. I stepped into the room, my shadow falling across her. She started talking fast, her words a jumbled plea. It wasn't what it sounded like, she said. She swore it started as a stupid bet, but she fell for me for real. I stood there, my arms crossed, my heart pounding as she spilled the truth I never wanted to hear. Chloe said it began after the funeral, when she told her friends Maya and Quinn about me. They found my social media profile and laughed themselves sick over my photo. Just some nerdy coder, they said, not worth her time. They dared her to go out with me, to mess with me for a week before ghosting. She agreed, thinking it was harmless fun, a chance to prove she could play their games. But after our first date, she couldn't walk away. She said she saw something in me, kindness, humor, a steadiness her exes never had. Her voice broke as she swore she stopped seeing the bet and started seeing us, our life together. I listened, my jaw tight, every word cutting deeper. I wanted to believe her, to cling to the love we built, but all I could hear was her laugh on that voice message, mocking the man I thought she adored. Then her phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up on the bed. I moved before I could think, snatching it up, my eyes scanning the incoming message. It was from Quinn. Still babysitting that loser? When are you ditching him for a real night out? My blood roared in my ears. I scrolled up, my fingers shaking as I saw the group chat labeled girls only. Months of messages unfolded, snarky comments about my clothes, my job, my quiet life. One from Maya stood out. Bet she dumps him by summer, he's too boring to keep her. Chloe lunged for the phone, her voice shrill. Stop it, please. I held it out of reach, my voice rising. This is what you've been hiding. This is why I never met them. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing, her hands clutching my jeans as she begged me to listen. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling with rage and hurt. She kept talking, her words a desperate blur. She said she was weak for going along with their dare, for not shutting them down. She swore she hid the chat to protect me, that she was planning to tell me everything soon. I paced the room, my sneakers squeaking on the floor, my mind a storm of her laughter and their cruel words. I stopped, my voice raw. You let them tear me apart for months and called it love. How am I supposed to trust you now? She crawled to her knees, her face streaked with tears, promising she would fix it, that she would cut them off if I stayed. But her eyes flickered with doubt, and I saw the truth she couldn't hide. She was still tied to them, to their approval, to the life she lived before me. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, my heart a shattered thing in my chest. I needed air, needed to escape the suffocating weight of her betrayal. She followed me to the door, her voice breaking as she pleaded for me to stay. I didn't look back, my hand on the knob. I need space, Chloe. I walked out, the cinnamon rolls forgotten on the counter, their sweetness now a bitter reminder of the life I thought we had. As I climbed into my car, the city lights blurred through a haze of unshed tears. I wondered if love was ever real, or just a game I was too naive to see. I drove through the city, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, the streetlights smearing into streaks of gold. Chloe's tear-streaked face lingered in my mind, her voice echoing with promises I couldn't trust. I needed distance from the apartment, from the life we built, so I headed to my mom's house an hour away in a quiet town where the world felt simpler. My chest ached like someone had carved out a piece of me, leaving only sharp edges behind. I pulled into the driveway just past midnight, the porch light glowing soft and familiar. Mom opened the door, her eyes scanning my face. Before she pulled me into a hug. She didn't press for details, just led me to the guest room, set out fresh sheets, and handed me a mug of chamomile tea. I sat on the bed staring at the steam curling upward, my thoughts a tangle of betrayal and longing. By morning I couldn't hold it in. Over coffee at her kitchen table the words spilled out, the voice message, the group chat, the way Chloe let her friends shred me for months. Mom's face tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line, but she listened, her silence a steady anchor. When I finished, my voice hoarse, she leaned forward, her hand warm on mine. She said she wished she could take the pain away, but I had to decide if I could love someone who hid such a lie. Her words sank deep, each one a stone in my gut. I spent the day on her couch staring at my phone, its screen dark after I turned it off to block Chloe's calls. But the quiet only amplified my thoughts, every memory of us now tainted by doubt. Did she ever laugh at me behind my back when we kissed, when we planned our future? The uncertainty was a knife twisting slowly. That night I powered on my phone, bracing myself. Notifications flooded in, 47 texts, 18 missed calls, 12 voicemails, all from Chloe. I played one, her voice raw and trembling. She said she didn't deserve forgiveness but begged for a chance to explain, said losing me was tearing her apart. My throat tightened, my finger hovering over the delete button, but I couldn't press it. Her words stirred something in me, not hope exactly, but a need to face her, to understand why she let this happen. Mom found me staring at the phone, her expression gentle but firm. She said running wouldn't fix anything, that I deserved answers even if they hurt. She was right, and the lease on our apartment loomed a tether I couldn't just cut. I packed my bag, my resolve hardening but my heart heavy with dread. I walked into the apartment 2 days later, the air thick with silence. Chloe rushed from the bedroom, her hair a wild mess, her eyes swollen and red. She wore my old college hoodie, its sleeves frayed and too big for her small frame. She threw her arms around me, her body shaking with sobs. Her voice broke as she apologized over and over, her words muffled against my chest. I felt a pang of guilt for her pain, but it wasn't enough to erase mine. I stepped back, my hands firm on her shoulders, guiding her to the couch. I sat across from her, my voice steady but cold. I told her to explain why I should stay with someone who turned my love into a game. She wiped her eyes, her fingers twisting in her lap as she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She said Maya and Quinn had been her world since college, the ones who pulled her through heartbreak and family fights. They were the cool girls, the ones everyone wanted to impress, and she always followed their lead. When they saw my photo they mocked me, said I was a nobody, a safe, boring choice compared to her flashy exes. She went along with their dare to prove she still fit in their circle, but swore she regretted it the moment we started dating. She said she hid their messages because she was ashamed, not because she agreed with them. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers, searching for truth but finding only desperation. I asked if she would cut them off now, if she could choose me over them. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor, and that pause was louder than any words. Then her phone chimed, a sharp ping that sliced through the tension. It was on the coffee table, its screen flashing with a new message. I grabbed it before she could, my pulse hammering as I saw Maya's name. Drinks tonight, babe. Dump the dead weight already. My vision blurred with anger. I scrolled up, my hands shaking as more texts loaded. Maya again. He's holding you back, Chloe. You're better than this. I threw the phone onto the couch, my voice rising. This is who you choose. These people who treat me like garbage. She scrambled to her feet, her hands reaching for me, but I backed away. She said she was scared of losing them, that they knew every piece of her life before me. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the room. They don't know the woman I love. Or maybe I never did either. She followed me as I stormed to the kitchen, her voice cracking with pleas. She said she would talk to them, would make them stop, but she couldn't just erase years of friendship. I spun around, my hands clenched. You're still defending them after everything. She froze, her eyes wide like she was seeing me for the first time. She sank to the floor, her sobs shaking her body, as she whispered she loved me more than anything. But I couldn't hear it, not with Maya's words burning in my mind, not with the weight of her hesitation crushing me. I grabbed a glass of water, my hands unsteady, my heart torn between wanting to hold her and wanting to run. The apartment felt too small, like the walls were closing in on a life I no longer recognized. I stood there, my back to her, wondering if love could survive a wound this deep, or if I was fighting for something already lost. I stood in our apartment, the silence heavy after Chloe's sobs faded. Her crumpled figure on the couch, my hoodie swallowing her frame, haunted me, but Maya's cruel text glowed in my mind, a reminder of the trust we lost. I spent the night in the guest room, the mattress creaking under my restless weight. My thoughts churned through every moment we shared, searching for truth beneath her lies. I loved her still, the ache in my chest proved it, but love wasn't enough when doubt poisoned every memory. By dawn I knew I couldn't stay, not with her torn between me and the friends who mocked my existence. I found her in the kitchen the next morning, her hands wrapped around a cold mug of coffee, her eyes hollow. I sat across from her, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't build a future with someone who let others tear me down. She flinched, her lips trembling, but she didn't fight back. She said she understood, whispered she hated herself for hurting me. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she promised to change, to be better, but her words felt like echoes of a promise already broken. I packed a suitcase, my hands numb as I folded shirts and grabbed my laptop. When I reached the door, she stood there, her fingers twisting the hoodie's frayed cuffs. She said she would always love me, her voice barely audible. I nodded, my throat tight, and walked out, the city air sharp against my skin. I rented a studio apartment across town, a cramped space with bare walls and a view of a noisy street. The first weeks were brutal, every quiet moment pulling me back to her laugh, her touch, the life we planned. I threw myself into coding, taking on extra projects to drown the pain. One night my phone buzzed with a message from a mutual friend. Chloe had cut ties with Maya and Quinn, they said, moved out of the apartment and started therapy. The news hit me hard, not with relief but with a strange grief. I hoped she was healing, but I couldn't go back, the wound too raw, the trust too shattered. Months later I sat on my tiny balcony, a cheap coffee mug in hand, watching the city pulse below. I thought about Chloe less now, but the lesson she left lingered sharp and clear. Love needed honesty, a foundation strong enough to withstand storms. I had ignored the cracks, her secrecy, her hesitations, and paid the price. I learned to trust my instincts, to value myself beyond others' judgments. I wasn't perfect, but I deserved someone who saw me fully, no bets, no games. The pain shaped me, made me stronger, wiser about what I wanted from life and love. This journey has been a roller coaster, raw and real. Does this ending feel right to you, or did it catch you off guard? Share your thoughts below. If this story hit home, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales that dive deep into the heart. Thanks for sticking with me. See you in the next one.